Welcome to the Rebel Podcast, Adventure Travel Series, Episode 3 with Debra Danielson, Paranormal Adventure Travel.
I look so sweet, but I'm Jekyll and Hyde. Freak of the week, got you so terrified. I only come out late at night. Savage and reckless, I'm empty inside. Bullets and booze, liquor and love. Heartbreak and heaven, it's what I'm made of. It's what I'm made of, what I'm made of. It's what I'm made of, what I'm made of. La 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 la. La 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 la. Bullets and booze. La 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 la. La 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 la. Bullets and booze.
We are going to look again at one of the most popular of the adventure travel paranormal tour experience. This is adventure travel that really explores what goes on around Halloween, but a lot of people are fascinated with history, and they do like understanding about cemeteries and what goes on. So let's look at another case of adventure travel that someone took a paranormal experience and then was involved in being a reported death. A woman who was a 40-year-old died after falling down a flight of stairs at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. The woman was participating in a ghost hunt at the time of her death, and some witnesses believed she may have been pushed by a ghost. Let me be clear, there is absolutely no scientific evidence to support that claim that ghost adventure travel activities can be dangerous. It is possible that the deaths described here in this series were simply accidents or caused by natural causes. Overall, the risk of death associated with any ghost adventure travel activities is like any other activity. You must take precautions to stay safe. It is important to choose a reputable tour operator and to follow all safety instructions. It is also important to be respectful of the places you are visiting and to avoid disturbing any paranormal activity that you may encounter there. Here are some additional safety tips for ghost adventure travel. Be aware of your surroundings and watch your step. Do not wander off alone. Be respectful of the places you are visiting and those who are there. Do not disturb any paranormal activity that you may encounter. And remember, with anything, if you feel uncomfortable or scared, leave the area promptly. Now, the rest is up to you to go have a great adventure tour experience and to share it with all your family and friends. And we have a new guest on to talk about a paranormal adventure travel experience. Welcome, Trudy.
Thank you.
I am so excited to share all that you do with our audience, because when we came through as a group and had a paranormal tour with you in the evening when it was dark out, right before Halloween, I must say, even though I'm usually pretty solid with things, there were a couple of times I got spooked in that jail. 4 or 5 years ago, when Zach Bagan came and they did the Ghost Adventure Tour there.
Dark out, we are in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and we are getting ready to be locked down inside of one of the most unique jails that I've ever been to. Not just because of the Squirrel Cage cylinder where these inmates would get locked down, but because of the serial killer that spent time here. And upon researching about the Jake Bird hex, we are wondering, we know that it was documented he put a curse on people who ended up dying that were part of his punishment during his sentencing and trial, but did he also put some kind of a curse on the very building that took his freedom away. The things that are going on inside, the things that are going on with people who spend time here and even go home, indicates a strong yes. The spirits here made contact with us during our first day yesterday. They spoke in full sentences with complete relevance of what this place is, a jail. So, with that said, it has already set a very, very intense, anxiety-driven stage, and I'm excited. Where's
It's
Kat?
amazing how spirits can attach to a place. And, you know, good and bad. Zach Bagan seemed to show any fright. He went in to a place known to be haunted, shut the lights off, and having been in that place with you, and you only shut the lights off for a few minutes, or actually a few seconds.
Yeah,
I mean, it freaked out the whole group I was with, right?
it did.
But he went in there and he had the lights off for quite some time. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, what that was like?
Yeah, they were wonderful to work with.
But now we're going to talk about what you find there on a daily basis. Because I've talked to you and some other people that, you know, you've had things happen in there. And knowing that there's been 2 serial killers that have gone through that place, and we know how diabolical people who want to hurt other people can be. And one of those people, actually, there's this book written called Bestial, and that person was an international serial killer, and he killed the lady that lived directly across the street from where I live now, and stuffed her body behind the furnace
Yes.
and the wall, which was a really tight space. And then the sheriff at that moment, Sheriff Laneson, made a profound statement that the woman had killed herself and stuffed her body back there.
Yes.
Which, of course, is
False.
crazy, right? There's no way she could have done all of that. But that is one of the gentlemen that spent time over there. And then there was another gentleman, which you shared a story about when we were there, that is actually haunting the jail. So can you tell us about that one?
That would be Jake Bird.
Yes.
He was one of the serial killers. So Jake started killing people in Carter Lake, and he ended up in the jail in Council Bluffs, where he was there with during his trial. That would have been in the 20s. And then he was sent to Fort Madison, which is federal prison in Iowa. He was there for 12 years and was released on good behavior.
Are you serious? I guess I didn't realize that part. How can you release a serial killer on good behavior?
Exactly. Maybe they needed their room, something like that.
Something.
It's hard to say.
Budgets were low.
So then he worked his way by rail across the United States, still killing people after those 12 years in federal prison. And he ended up in Washington State. That's where they caught him, and that's where they hung him. And that was in 1949. He was 47 years old. We have the death certificate hanging in the jail. The information about Jake and his life story.
It's just eerie that he would come back. And do you think he comes back to the Squirrel Cage Jail because he was unhappy there, or he found it comforting there?
Probably comforting would be my guess. There's been a few other inmates that have come back over the years to visit that are still living in the area. Separately, they've all said the same thing: good food. It would be home cooked, and also they were treated fairly, not at all what you would have expected.
And the unique construction of the jail probably had something to do with it too. But the people who ran the jail would let them out of their cell, and actually they would have freedom and they would walk around.
Within the building,
Yeah.
but only on whatever floor they were on.
Yeah.
Another reason for that is because the jailer's wife was the cook, and she had to cook for all of those inmates, so they had to line up and get their food through what we call a port,
Oh.
which is an opening, and the food would just be passed through. Yeah, so no personal contact.
Why the construction of this jail was so unique?
Definitely unique. In the day, it was state of the art in 1885. And there were 18 originally in the United States. There's only 3 left as museums. The design is such to be safe for one jailer that did not need to carry a weapon. It is supposed to be escape-proof like all jails and prisons, and cheap for the county to pay 2 people, the jailer and his wife.
To run the whole place?
Mostly money.
And how many prisoners were able to be accommodated there?
The cage, which is 3 levels, will hold 60. If other parts are full, because there are a few other cells that are not in the cage, the building can hold 90.
Wow.
And only the 2 employees.
That was very economical in the day.
Oh, yes.
And it would still be economical today, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, you have had some people who did manage to escape. So tell us, how could the unescapable place be compromised so that these guys got out?
Escapes early on and up until the end. Almost everybody that escaped came back, obviously not by choice. Well, one of the jailers, for whatever reason, didn't lock the doors. So just straight out the front door. Yeah, I believe that was nine of them. Yeah.
Wow. Do you think he got paid off or something?
I've questioned that. Then the cage does not rotate any longer, but when it did, it was the inside, so like a turntable. So sometimes the inmates, if they were desperate, would put their arm or their wrist through as the cage rotated, thinking, oh, if I'm injured, I can escape en route to or from the off-site hospital. Well, they put a hospital in the building, and that took care of that.
Did people lose arms doing that?
They would definitely be crushed, and then they may have to amputate later.
Oh, geez, that's gross.
It is.
Yeah.
The pain would be extreme.
Yeah.
Another escape, one of the inmates bound and gagged the jailer and then went into the office, which is the booking office, stole some money, and went through the window that is in the office. Yes.
Wow. I thought all the windows had bars. I guess I didn't notice.
And another escape, it's kind of gross, but on the main floor only of the cage, there is a metal plate that is on the floor that is in front of the toilet. Somehow one of the inmates was able to pry that up, and it would go down to the basement. Well, from the basement then he went through the tunnels and the plumbing.
The sewer.
Yes.
Oh, geez. That has got to be not good for the health. One of the architectural aspects of the jail that just shocked me was solitary confinement. What solitary confinement looked like in 1895?
Solitary confinement is a cell that is within the office space. And it is a platform that would be just a few benches off the ground. And it would hold, it's 2 by 2 by 6 feet.
So 2 foot wide, right?
Yes.
6 foot tall.
Correct.
And then 2 foot to like move. So unless you were super Stretch Armstrong type, once you were in there, you couldn't even turn around.
It would be difficult, or sit down. So there would have been on the one side a metal gate, which would be closed and locked. On the opposite side, there is a metal door, and the inmate is right there in between, like a sandwich. And it would be literally standing room only. It's designed to be maybe 30 minutes up to a couple of hours for someone to be in there.
So maybe if somebody wanted to go in and clean a cell or transfer a guy from one cell to another cell, they might put him in there.
Possibly.
Or they put him in there for bad behavior.
Right.
So there could be a number of things, but I can't imagine being stuck in one position for 2 hours.
It was designed to make the inmate calm down. However, it did not do that. It made things worse. Another part of solitary confinement, we call it solitary confinement hallway, which is within the cage itself. And it's a curved hallway that if there's a disturbance within the cage, the jailer could put several guys back in there, and it literally curves. So it would still be difficult to sit down.
But the guys were all in there together?
Yes.
Oh my.
And if they're fighting about who knows what,
Good
I
grief.
mean, and then they're stuck in there together.
They could kill each other. Did anything like that happen in the jail that you know about?
We know of 5 deaths in the jail over those 84 years. There were 2 heart attacks. One guy did nothing but smoke, and he died. There was one guy that fell from the outside bars from the 2nd floor on down to the main floor, so that's pure concrete that he would fall on.
So he was trying to escape, maybe?
I think climbing on the outside of the cage, maybe showing off.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in 1932, there were some farmers' riots. Had to do with the price of their goods. So there were special deputies that were assigned, and there was a training exercise in the office for riot gun training. And a gun misfired, and 2 officers were shot. One of them did not survive. And one guy hung himself, too.
Bill Cutler Sr. was just in here, and the jail is situated right behind the funeral homes. Can you speak to any of that? I mean, was that done on purpose that they put the jail right there by the funeral homes?
I believe it was planned because, of course, obviously the funeral home is right there. There were actually 3 funeral homes at one time on that block. But it's my understanding that if someone died, that they had what they call the morgue close by, underneath the area where the picnic table is.
Wow, that is really, that's a mind bender for me. I know you get a lot of tours. We have bus tours coming through for the Railroad Museum that's right there too.
Correct.
And there's been stories that where the Railroad Museum is now, that used to be the Carnegie Library.
Yes.
But prior to that, the officer house stood there. And there has been a lot of sightings of a female who's believed to be Ms. Officer.
Julia Officer.
Yeah. Actually walking down the sidewalk and walking over toward the funeral home. Hey, so I'm out here with our mayor, Matt.
Good afternoon, Deb. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And I just want to tell you, I'm talking to people now about the haunting over here at the Squirrel Cage Jail.
There's many rumors, and you know how rumors are. They're based in fact sometimes.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Where there's smoke, look for the ghost shadows.
So have you heard any rumors about the building behind us, the Carnegie Library, which is now the Union Pacific Railroad Museum?
It's the old Andrew Carnegie Library, and I know when we were kids, we used to haunt it. We'd sneak in the back door and scare people, but I don't know if the ghosts have moved from the Squirrel Cage Jail to the Union Pacific Museum, but I haven't heard that. So.
All right. Well, I'll be careful no matter what.
All right.
All right.
Well,
good
you have
to
a great
talk
day.
to you. What has been your experience inside of the jail? What have you found to be paranormal that you could not really explain?
I have heard footsteps in different areas and at different times. Above the office is juvenile detention. I've heard footsteps up there. Across from the office is the kitchen, and I've heard footsteps in the kitchen. And there's been whispering. That was on the 4th floor. I was the first one there to open up the building for the day. I got to the 4th floor, turned the lights on, started to go around to the left, and I heard whispering. I couldn't understand it, but I know it was a guy. That's fairly recent. On the 4th floor also, in the living room, there is a music box that sits on the bookcase. That has played on its own. I've heard it play twice, and it does not sound like a CD. It sounds kind of metal-like.
Looking at that music box, and it's the old-fashioned kind that you have to wind
Correct.
up, and that when it winds down, there's no more juice there. It
Right.
can't just turn itself on.
That's right.
So for you to hear that, first of all, that gives me shivers up my spine, because being on the 4th floor, that's where the home was, where the jailer and his wife lived with the children.
Yes.
So being up there and having that kind of an experience would tell me that who's ever back in there has free reign of the place. They're not respecting like where they would have been at the time of being in there.
Yes.
And the kitchen, in my opinion, for serving that many people was very small, actually.
It is very small. That kitchen is almost entirely original.
Yeah. And for those of you who've never been in a squirrel cage jail, it literally is 3 stories tall. It's a metal cylinder cage stacked on top of each other. And then there was a gear that would make it rotate. And really and truthfully, I just don't think that there's that much cross ventilation in there. But it's a very Victorian, beautifully architected building. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything like this, except for the other 2 that exist.
They are. There's one in Missouri, and then there's another one in Crawfordsville, Indiana.
Are they open for tours?
They are.
Are they haunted?
So I've been told.
Yeah.
Council Bluffs Jail has always been the largest of the 18 that were built.
And I know that they shut down the rotation for safety and fire purposes.
Yes.
So that it wasn't because it was malfunctioning, it was for safety and fire purposes.
You're right.
So what does someone do if they want to come and book a tour?
They actually can just show up. Yeah, there's no need to call in advance. We do schedule group tours, but that you would need to call.
Now, if a group wanted to come through and they wanted to dress up and wear Halloween costumes like we did and get experience from a tour guide such as yourself, that process would be to call and to book an appointment.
Yes.
The only other thing, just like 2 words about this, is that we also still have a depot, a railroad depot. I've heard that that is also very, I guess, haunted, or there's paranormal activity that's been experienced there.
Yes.
Quick, what kind of things are happening at the depot that are like paranormal?
At the depot, it is believed that it's one of the baggage men
Really?
that is there.
Just loved it so much, couldn't go home. Is it a good experience or a frightening experience from
No, it's a good experience.
the depot and the jail? And then outside of the depot, you have some old antique cars, railroad cars, a mail car, and some other different types of cars
Right.
that I also found fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think that anybody who calls and books a tour or who shows up at the jail, I think they're going to be very pleasantly surprised.
There's a lot of people that come over and over.
Yeah.
And people from all over. We get a lot of locals, but you name it, they come.
Well, we have people come from all over the world just because of the Union Pacific Railroad Museum. And literally, the jail is here. The Railroad Museum is right there, just a
Yes.
few feet away. And the funeral homes with the Cutlers is just right there, right next door. I mean, it's just very convenient.
It is.
And I guess, it would have still been convenient for the jail to be there, because right next door to that's the courthouse where people go to trial, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here
pleasure.
today. It's always a delight.
Yeah, if those walls could talk,
Oh, geez.
we would love that.
Maybe we would have to have a, I don't know, like a layer of protection to protect us, because some of that might not be too pleasant. when you've got serial killers rolling through a place, it's just kind of like unnerving. And here's what's interesting too about those serial killers, both of them. They both traveled via railroad. And I'm not saying they bought a ticket. I'm saying they jumped on a railroad car, as was often,
Oh, yes.
you know, commonplace back then, and they hitched a ride.
Now, Jake Bird was a railroad employee.
I never knew that. Wow.
So his travel was definitely easy.
Geez, that's scary. Well, thank you so much again.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being on the Rebel Podcast, and thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you for your support, and if you do enjoy a tour of one of these places that we've talked about or suggested, please write in, let us know how you liked it and what your experience was. Thank you again for watching the Rebel Podcast.
You see me as a monster who haunts your soul and mind. Well, baby, come get lost in my wild and crazy ride.
Great memories and enjoy the Adventure Travel series on the Rebel Podcast.
You see me as a monster who haunts your soul and mind. Well, baby, come get lost in my wild and crazy ride.
Hey, this is Debra Danielson. Thanks for listening. You can stream my music, download it, and share it off of Spotify, Apple Music, and so much more. Check it out and enjoy it for your everyday life.